Hey everybody, welcome. It is 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm Noah. Welcome to anybody tuning in for the first time. This is the monthly offering of World Services, the third Thursday Dharma talk and discussion that I lead. If this is not a peer-led Refuge Recovery meeting, if you're looking for that, go back to the website, find a peer-led Refuge Recovery meeting. This is a rare monthly teacher-led offering where I'll give some meditation instructions and I'll share a topic and we'll have some time for discussion about it. For the last several months, we've been on the topic of going through the Eightfold Path. And we're on the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core teaching of the Buddha, the core teaching of Refuge Recovery, of what we're using for our recovery from addiction. We're on the seventh factor, and the seventh factor is broken down into 4 sections, as most of you are probably aware. We've already gone through the first 3 sections, which is mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breath and body, mindfulness of the feeling tone, how we perceive our experience as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Mindfulness of the mind, which in Refuge Recovery, I broke down into 2 sections. The process of mind, how the impermanent nature of thoughts arising and passing, the impermanent, impersonal nature of how the mind has a mind of its own, thinks all by itself. And then the content, the second part of the third part of the third aspect of the four foundations is the content of, as we bring mindfulness to our minds, what's happening, what is the content? Is it planning? Is it remembering? Is it craving? Is it aversion? Is it hope? Is it fear? And identifying not only the process of impermanent nature of thoughts, but bringing mindfulness to what the mind is thinking about and having a wise relationship to the mind. All of that is third foundation. Tonight we're on the fourth foundation, which is actually the most detailed and complicated aspect of the mindfulness teachings, because I think I included 4 aspects of the fourth foundation in Refuge Recovery, but there's actually a 5th aspect that I didn't even include. So any of you Buddhist, nerds out there who are really aware of what the Buddha taught will probably be aware that there's a whole piece of the fourth foundation that we don't include in Refuge, which kind of just an oversight on my part or a mistake on my part. And I think the piece that I left out of the fourth foundation is about how our reality is made up of these 5 heaps, piles, or kind of gatherings of experience, of phenomena. They're called the skandhas, or the heaps. And what they are is consciousness and memory, a body, sense perception, and feeling tone. And so the 5 skandhas, and that all of those 5 things together create the feeling of I and me and mine. I think when I was creating Refuge, I felt like that was a little confusing for people, so I decided to set it aside and speak about it in a simpler terms. What is included in the Refuge Recovery version of the fourth foundation is mindfulness of the 4 noble truths. Mindfulness of suffering when it's present, mindfulness of craving when it's present, mindfulness of the absence of craving when it's not, when craving is not present. And so these are really the first 3 truths: suffering, the cause of suffering, the absence or the end of suffering. And although these are the first 3 noble truths, the Buddha in the fourth foundation of mindfulness said, now use these experiences as mindfulness practices. Be mindful of craving, of suffering, and of nirvana, the absence of suffering. It then went on to say, and be mindful of all of the 8 factors of the Eightfold Path, which mindfulness is one of. The other lists in this teaching traditionally are mindfulness of the 5 hindrances, that there's 5 different mind states that hinder our ability to see clearly. And those are craving for pleasure, aversion to pain, restlessness and anxiety, sloth and torpor, laziness and procrastination, and doubt. All 5 of these. So as you can see, it's a lot, right? And this is just the first, 4 noble truths, 5 hindrances. And then he goes on to say, and this is where we bring in traditionally awareness of the 6 senses, not just breath awareness, not just body awareness, but awareness of sound. And sound becomes its whole own meditation practice. Awareness of seeing, and seeing becomes its whole own mindfulness of sight, of what we're seeing, of what we're smelling, of what we're tasting, of what we're feeling head to toe, physical sensations, and what we're experiencing psychologically, mentally, and emotionally. So all of that is part of the 5 sense doors of, or six sense doors of the human condition. So 4 noble truths, 5 hindrances, sense doors, and then the 7 factors of awakening. Whole nother list of experiences, sometimes translated as phenomena, that we will experience while we're meditating. So let's meditate. I'll bring you through something similar to what we do in the Refuge Recovery meetings, although I'll probably freestyle it a bit. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this teaching and the application to our recovery, and the awareness and the wisdom that we're trying to develop around this for our recovery from addiction. So find a way to sit that is upright and relaxed. Find a posture that feels sustainable. I think you can rest in that posture with little or no movement if possible. Allowing our eyes to be closed, the attention to come into the body, first foundation, mindfulness of the physical. And as you bring awareness into your body, see if there's tension in the jaw or shoulders or belly that can be released, softened, relinquished. With each exhale, softening, releasing, relaxing into the present. And spending the first 5 minutes just with mindfulness of the body, awareness of the breath, with the intention to be kind, patient, and accepting with our experience. Softening as you exhale. Giving your full attention to the sensations that the breath is creating. course, the mind begins to wander, the attention wanders back into thinking. Don't make it a problem. It's just what the mind does. But for now, come back to the body. See that we can choose where we focus our attention. Come back to the breath without judgment, with kindness, with patience. And now let's open all the way to the fourth foundation. Fourth foundation is inclusive of the mind states, inclusive of the feeling tones that create these phenomena that are associated or connected to the truth of our experience. And although my sense of the teaching is this fourth foundation is a description of what you will become aware of in meditation, it is also useful to use it as an investigation, to contemplate, to use your mind to reflect and think about all of these lists, starting with the Four Noble Truths, inquiring, investigating in your experience right now, is there any suffering present? And one of the ways we can identify that is we can just ask ourselves, am I completely at peace right now? And if we're not completely at peace, what is it that we're feeling off about? Whether there's some strong emotions, some aversion to discomfort, the mind is worried. What is the suffering in this moment? Where do you experience it? Is it in your body, in your heart, in your mind? Where's the unpleasantness, the resistance, the clinging, the craving, the fear? And the second truth of investigating, where's the craving? What is the mind, the body craving for or aversive to that is creating the uneasiness in this moment, that is creating the suffering? And the repetitive craving of our human condition. Investigating, turning towards. The stories that the mind makes up about happiness existing in some future destination. I'll be happy when I get that or this, when I get there. I would be happy if this wasn't happening or that wasn't happening. All of the craving-based stories. And then the investigation of the third noble truth, and this might be able to identify some in the present, or at times when we're meditating, the experience of no suffering, of contentment, of feeling at ease, the absence of resistance or craving. You can also experience this sometimes by directing your attention out of the mind and into a part of the body that is neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. A place in the body where there's no suffering. There's sensation, there's awareness, where there's no resistance to the sensation, no craving for the sensation to be different than it is. Then expand to the fourth noble truth, reflecting on these 8 factors of the path, the eightfold path: understanding and intention, communication and action, livelihood and effort, mindfulness and concentration. Just reflecting for a moment on your own path and what of these factors perhaps needs more attention to come into balance, more effort, more mindfulness, more renunciation, or more carefulness with our speech, our communication. This eightfold path, which is our guide, our practice, the middle path to recovery, to liberation. Present time, non-judgmental, kind awareness, mindfulness of the 6 senses. What are you hearing in this moment? What are you seeing, smelling, tasting? What are you aware of feeling in the body, in the heart, in the mind? These 6 doors of perception, gates of awareness. The way this mind and body process information, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling. along with this physical form, these 6 sense doors, ways of knowing, processing. There's also these factors, these piles of experience, the way it's translated, heaps of phenomena. The first one is the body, this physical form. This physical form that feels and knows pleasure, pain, neutrality, feeling tones. And that is aware, conscious. That consciousness that we experience the body through, that we experience the mind. And the perception, memories, where we create a self based on our past experiences, an identity, personality. The feeling of I, me, mine, that is produced by having a body and consciousness, feeling tone, perception. Mindfulness, that's all of these factors coming together that create the feeling of a solid, separate, continuous self, me. And continuing to the contemplation of the 7 factors of awakening, 7 factors of enlightenment, 7 factors of recovery, we could call them. And the first one is mindfulness, the practice that we're doing, this intentional awareness, paying attention, being present, being mindful that you are being mindful. I'm aware that I'm aware of my body, of my heart, my mind, the phenomena that my mind creates, experiences. Being mindful of the level of concentration that is present, how gathered the attention, or how scattered. Sometimes mindfulness of concentration is just aware that we're not very present. The mind's all over the place, the future, the past, fantasy. Mindful of the quality of investigation. Seeing how you can use your mind to question, to explore, to inquire, to investigate. What's happening just right now? Just ask yourself, what's happening right now? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? This is the awareness, mindfulness of investigation. And although we can't make this happen, at times a meditation practice or spontaneously, we'll experience the factor of tranquility, calmness, serenity. Sometimes the mind settles, becomes tranquil. Or the experience of equanimity, the factor of, similar to tranquility, being at ease with whatever's happening, even if it's unpleasant, being equanimous. Being serene, being at ease, even in the midst of difficulties, challenges, stressors. Accepting our pain just as it is. Or the quality of joy, the factor of joy. And sometimes it's intensely joyful, rapturous. Some of the meditative states, the emotional states that happen can be like a rapture, almost like being high. Or the experience of a more subtle, quieter, warmth kind of happiness, a calm happiness. Contentment, well-being. These 7 factors that are a description of meditative states, but interesting in our meditation to also investigate, is that happening? Where do I feel it in my body? How do I experience it in my heart and my mind? The last couple of minutes, let go, open the awareness. Rather than contemplating or investigating, just open, spacious, open, inclusive of our whole being that includes this physical form, this nervous system, the heart, emotional experience, the mind, mental activity, the sense doors. The phenomena of being human. When you're ready, allowing your eyes to open, bringing your attention back into the space you're in and the screen you're in front of. And so as you see from all of the instructions on this level, although it's one foundation, it's all under the fourth foundation of mindfulness, it's actually 5 different lists of experience. And within those 5 different lists, in Refuge we're just doing 4, but within the list of the 4 foundations, there's a lot there. You could spend weeks, months, years meditating on the suffering, the cause of suffering, those moments where there's no suffering, absence, the many liberations, many nirvanas that we experience throughout the day, and really attuning our attention so that the 4 Noble Truths aren't just a philosophy, but they're a practice. They're a part of our mindfulness practice. Am I suffering? What's it feel like? Where do I experience that? What's causing this suffering? Oh, where's the craving? What am I craving for? What's the story behind this craving? Investigating it. Is it even true? Watching the impermanent nature of craving. Oh, I was so sure that I had to have something 10 minutes ago, and now I'm fine. I didn't get it, and I'm fine. Or I got it, and it didn't work. However that plays out. That 3rd Noble Truth as a meditation instruction, rather than 3rd Noble Truth as a destination, a reliable internal refuge, a permanent, liberated, enlightened mind, rather than nirvana as the end of the path, the goal, the destination of our recovery, of our meditative life. Nirvana as a moment-to-moment experience that we all have at times, but usually we're not paying attention to it. In a simple way, anytime there's a moment of non-suffering. So, thinking about your day, did you suffer all day today? Did you have any moments today where you weren't really suffering? Or at least it was sort of. So all of those moments throughout our day when we're not suffering are the 3rd Noble Truth. And so one way to think about it, one of this Buddhist teacher from southern Thailand, an old school Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, wrote a whole book on everyday mini enlightenment. He called it mini nirvanas. Not the big 3rd Noble Truth awakening, but just those moments throughout the day, mini nirvanas. And when we're not mindful, we miss it. And even when we are mindful, often we're so focused on what's wrong, we forget, actually, there's a whole bunch of places in my body that aren't suffering. My mind is stirred up, but my thighs aren't suffering. Maybe even my ass hurts from sitting here in meditation, but my shoulders are fine, are not suffering. And being able to see that we can bring our awareness to, where, what are we focusing on? Mostly we have that negativity bias. The survival instinct is looking for what's wrong. And we forget what's not wrong, what's not suffering. The Eightfold Path, not just as our instructions, but as a contemplation. And it's important in our recovery and in our life to, at times, even in meditation, to sit here and reflect and investigate. Where am I at on this path? How is my understanding? Am I understanding karma, cause and effect? How are my intentions? Am I mostly living with the intention of non-harming, with the intention of kindness, with the intention of generosity? Is that my general, have I turned my life towards a dharmic intention, a positive intention? How's my speech? my communication, my relationships in community? Is, am I engaging in that in a good way? Am I isolating? Right? When we're isolating, we're not taking refuge in this factor of the community, which is core to the Buddha's encouragement. Take refuge in the Sangha, take refuge in community, learn to have conflict, learn to fight with each other, learn to, be real and be forgiving and be accepting, and be loving, be tolerant. All of this around communication and community. And the reflection on the action of, which mostly traditionally is renunciation. Have I been killing? Have I been lying? Have I been stealing? Have I been in sexual misconduct, inappropriate relationships, lying, cheating, manipulating? Have I been using intoxicants, right? The fifth, part of action, have I been getting high? And, and then in recovery, there's the physical abstinence. And then we also have to look at, has my addiction taken different forms? Am I now in a sex or love addiction, or a food addiction, or a spending addiction, or a working addiction, or a gambling, or is there some other way that now I'm seeking in a compulsive and addictive way that's creating suffering for me? We have to also look at that. Now that we've maintained or established and are maintaining abstinence from the substances, are there other addictive behaviors that are cropping up? What they call about the whack-a-mole in that old arcade game, whack-a-mole. It's like this one pops up and you knock it down, and then this one pops up and you knock it down, and then this one pops up. And sometimes that's not true for everyone. Some people are just substance addicts, but often it can manifest in different ways. What kind of a relationship to money, to work, to livelihood, our relationship to effort? How much effort am I putting in? Am I sitting every day? Am I going to meetings? Am I attending retreats? Am I putting some time into studying the Dharma? Am I putting the appropriate, I feel like this for addicts, it's always so interesting when we reflect on how much fucking effort did you put into your addiction? Most of us, it was a full-time job to be a drug addict or whatever kind of addiction. We would go to any lengths. We would, from the moment we woke up all the way through drinking, using, stealing, lying, cheating, whatever that involves in your life. But then when it comes to recovery, we're like, fuck, I got to go to a meeting. I got to meditate for 20 minutes. Man, you guys are asking a lot. That's a lot of work. But like, what did you do for a fix? What did you do for booze? What did you do for, and looking at that effort, and we have the effort, we have the energy. It's just, are we using it for our recovery? Or are we using it to chase pleasure or money or whatever it is that we're using our energy for? Are we using it for our recovery? Mindfulness, concentration. So all of this as part of the fourth foundation, being mindful of these factors, this path that we're on, using meditation also as a form of reflection and contemplation in this fourth foundation. And as I said in the beginning, I feel like, when I read this and I practice it, and I feel like for the most part, the fourth foundation is a description. If you're mindful, you will become aware of. The 5 hindrances will visit. The 7 factors of awakening at times will visit. You'll be aware of the 6 sense doors. If you're present, if you put the effort into the first 3 foundations of mindfulness, you concentrate on the breath and body, you investigate the feeling tones, you stop ignoring your mind and you turn toward and you investigate the process and content of your mind. This is what you will see. You'll see that the mind likes to plan a lot and spend a lot of time in the past and in the future. And you'll see the craving for pleasure that hinders happiness, the aversion to pain that hinders happiness, the restlessness and the anxiousness that hinder peace and happiness, freedom and well-being. You'll see the sloth and torpor and tendency to procrastinate and not meditate or not go to the meeting or not sign up for the retreat or not finish your fucking inventory you've been working on for 3 years. Torpor, sloth, procrastination. That's, you start being mindful, you'll see, oh, I've been putting that off. That's unpleasant. I'm going to put that off. And doubt. The Buddha said doubt is the most debilitating of the hindrances. That part of the mind that feels unable, unworthy, that part of the mind that doubts our capacity for recovery, for change, and doubt can show up in 2 ways: self-doubt, and you can reflect on this. How much does your mind doubt you? And then how much does it doubt the path? Sometimes there's a good narcissistic sense of self that says, I could do anything if it was possible. It's just not possible to end suffering. If recovery was possible, I could do it, but it's not possible. It's not a failure in here. It's just not a possibility. Buddhism doesn't work. The 12 steps don't work. Nothing works. This sort of nihilistic, doubt into like, there's no solution. And so you got to look at how much does my mind get into that wormhole of no hope? And how much does it get into like, yeah, Buddhism makes a lot of sense. Refuge makes a lot of sense. I just can't do it because I'm too wounded. Or I'm too whatever it is. I'm too broken. I'm too selfish, self-centered, whatever that self-doubt. The 7 factors of awakening. Mindfulness of mindfulness. Yeah, this is like, it's kind of meta awareness. Like there's awareness and then there's awareness of awareness. I'm mindful and I'm mindful that I'm mindful. Right? Concentration. Oh, yes. How concentrated am I? And sometimes long-term, more on retreat, but something very concentrated. Wow, we get so concentrated. The Buddha gave descriptions of the levels of concentration in long-term and deep meditative states where, sense of self starts to dissolve, all doubts go away, all, total confidence, and the concentrated mind that blocks out the hindrances, that protects us from the hindrances. At times, the body dissolves in deep concentrated states. Amazing experiences of bliss in deep concentrated states. But you don't have to be deeply concentrated to find liberation. And all of what mindfulness is about is not about being so concentrated. It's about a relationship to what's happening. Sometimes concentrated, sometimes not so concentrated. Present time awareness of what's happening. And even in the not so concentrated state, sometimes the mind will become very tranquil or equanimous or joyous or rapturous. And like it just happens. And again, description. You can't make joy happen in your meditation, and too much craving for joy in your meditation will just create more suffering. But sometimes when you're meditating, it's incredible. And you just feel like, wow, I'm fucking happy as shit for no reason. I'm just sitting here. Nothing delicious, nothing pleasant, just my heart, mind are opening, and it's awesome. This is fucking rad. And all I was doing is sitting here being kind to myself. Joy. The term for that kind of rapture is the more intense one, but the term for the more kind of subtle, pervasive, what we might even call spiritual happiness, is sukha. You know, I don't know if everybody knows this Buddhist, you know, language stuff, but the term for the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. Suffering, dukkha. It sounds like it, right? Dukkha. The term for happiness, that sort of not sense pleasure based, but just meditative based happiness, sukha. It's sweet, it's open, it's warm, it's a loving feeling that's not based on people, places, things, situations, sensual or material things, just from your own heart. So the fourth foundation has a lot of information in it. There's a lot of lists. I know, easy for me to say. Sebastian and I were talking before class about, like, I wonder, you know, maybe it would be useful because it's a lot. And in the book, what I give you one paragraph. Well, the fourth foundation has 3 paragraphs, but in the book, I give you basically all of these teachings. There's the guided meditation, but I give you all of these teachings in one paragraph. It says, the fourth level of mindfulness is paying attention to the truth of the present time experience. That is, paying attention to and knowing when suffering is present, when craving has arisen, when contentment and peace are being experienced. This level of mindfulness extends to all of the experiences we have, including the awareness of the arising and passing of the 5 hindrances that we just talked about, of craving for pleasure, aversion to pain, restlessness, sloth, doubt. The 6 senses of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, thinking, and feeling. The 4 noble truths of suffering, the cause, its end, and the path, the 8-fold path to the end of suffering. The 7 factors of enlightenment, which are mindfulness, investigation, tranquility, equanimity, patience, rapture, and concentration. Through mindfulness, we have insights into the attachments, clingings, cravings that perpetuate our addictions. All these meditation instructions are applicable to any posture. Now, here's really what's important for 4 foundations. Remember this, if nothing else. Are applicable to any posture or movement of the body, whether done walking, standing, sitting, or laying down. Mindfulness and contemplative inquiry can and should be practiced. It's a real common trap to think that we're only meditating when we're sitting still. Sit still every day. And then continue your meditation in all of the activities of your life. Present time awareness of what's happening, how it feels, how we're responding to how it feels, what the mind is up to in every activity of our life. Easier said than done, I know, but you'll get there as you practice over the years and decades of your recovery. It'll become more and more natural as you practice it. Just like trying to drive a car was difficult in the beginning. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. First foundation, second foundation, third foundation, fourth foundation. After a while, you just know how to do it. And you just live in these 4 foundations of mindfulness, like you're driving your car down the road, driving your life, your mind down the road. So we have a few minutes for questions, discussion, clarifications. I know I threw a lot at you, but it was one of those topics where you got a lot tonight. If you have a question, you can raise your hand on the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. Richard, jump in.
Thank you, Noah. Wonderful teaching, really wonderful. Thank you so much for taking this on and unpacking the 4th foundation for us. And so rich, so beautiful. Thank you. Really great. A lot of this seemed to me today to be like pointing out instructions, just showing like, this is what you could be doing with your meditation. You could be looking at this with your mind. And so I appreciate that. My question, which is also sort of a request, so I'll say it's both, is I know you're in the process of rewriting the book or revising the book. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to consider looking at the fourth foundation meditation and expanding it a bit along the lines of what you talked about today. So as we're sitting in the meetings and we're doing the fourth foundation of meditation, some of the stuff will occur to us, sort of bringing that pointing out instruction flavor. You know,
Yeah.
take a look at your mind. Look at this. Look at this.
I mean, I'm even thinking that like we should have, 4 or 5 different meditations, one just on the hindrances. Rather than throwing the hindrances in there as all part of the fourth foundation, a meditation practice on the 5 hindrances.
Yeah.
A meditation practice on the 7 factors. And even the 7 factors, it's too much. 7 things to contemplate in one meditation. Right? I'm
in total agreement.
So, but a whole nother, rather than trying to, the 6 sense doors. I mean, I direct us to the 6 sense doors even in mindfulness of the body, because it's part of the body. But a whole meditation on hearing, listening meditation, on just that sense, on seeing, on smelling, so I do feel motivated to do some of that in the second edition, to extrapolate some and this 4 Noble Truths, Eightfold Path as a meditative contemplation, not just as a philosophical understanding, but in the sitting meditation, contemplating the 8 factors and the 4 truths. So I think I will do it.
Thank you. And this time include the skandhas, please.
Yeah, and I'll put the skandhas in. Between you and I and everybody else here and everyone who listens later, I was saying to Sebastian earlier, I think the reason I left it out is when I was creating Refuge, I was feeling hesitant to go too strong, too hard with not self. I felt like, a whole bunch of recovering addicts, I wanted to help them, find the practical tools that Buddhism offers, mindfulness and compassion and forgiveness and non-clinging, and not get too much into the philosophical, who is the addict? Who am I? What is this? And that's the skandhas is all about not self.
I know.
But and the way I generally do it in Refuge is kind of pointing out how impersonal, how often we're taking something personal that's not so personal, which is my nod towards anatta. But maybe in the, at this point, 10 years in, there is we were even talking about like, well, is there like an advanced path where, because, when you're brand new, don't worry about self, but later down the path, start contemplating the self.
Well, you know me in my practice, and you know that I have a sweet spot in my heart for emptiness meditation. So yeah. I say include it. And for those that don't want to hear it or don't know what to do with it, they'll skip it until later.
Yeah, but Richard, it's easier for you and I to say because, you've been sober for longer than Jesus.
No, almost like as long as Buddha. Thank you, Noah. Thanks again for today.
You're welcome. Okay, well, we'll leave it there for tonight. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. We're just about out of time anyways. Couple of announcements and for you, and also for you to share with the groups that you attend and your Sangha, your friends in recovery. There's room for this India pilgrimage. It had been sold out, but now there's some space. So anybody that wants to go with the Refuge Recovery Sangha on this trip to India, to the place of the Buddha's enlightenment and birth and death and some key places where he taught throughout his life, the Buddhist pilgrimage spaces, you're welcome to come. It's open for registration. there's some openings. It's expensive, of course. It's a bit of a luxury to be able to travel to the other side of the world and go do this. But if you're in the place where you have the time and the financial ability to come with us on this trip, consider it. It's happening in a couple months in November. So I hope that some people know about it. Spread the word that it's still open and people can come, can register. I have a retreat, Refuge Recovery retreat on the East Coast next week, a week from yesterday. Starts on Thursday, what is that, the 14th? No, the 12th. Is that right? 12th, I think. Yeah, I think 12th, 13, 14, 15. 3 nights in Rhode Island at the Rhode Island Zen Center, Providence Zen Center in Rhode Island. So kind of, it's pretty full, but I think there's room for camping. There might be a couple of beds left. If anybody on the East Coast last moment wants to come to a 3-night Refuge Recovery retreat, that's happening on the East Coast. While I'm out there, I'm also going to give a talk in Plymouth, Massachusetts. If you know anybody in the New England area that might be interested in coming down and connecting with me and the Sangha, on Wednesday, September 11th, I will do a talk in Plymouth, Mass. And then in New York City on Tuesday, the 17th, I'll be in Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, doing a Dharma talk. And part of my intention in New York is also to do a talk, to be of service, but also try to get some refuge meetings going again in New York City. We haven't got any New York City meetings going post-COVID, and we would really like that. So we're hoping that some people will show up in New York to support refuge meetings in Brooklyn and New York and the other boroughs. And then in December, North Carolina, there's a weekend retreat in Boone, North Carolina. So, and we're just about to release some of the retreats for next year. Part of our practice is daily meditation, meetings, inventories, attend retreats, and be of service and practice this in all of our life. So try to come to a retreat this year or next year if you can. Also, World Services is the nonprofit organization that supports everything that happens in Refuge, and our financial situation isn't great. Not a lot of donations are coming in, not enough to really support the 2 employees that we need to run the place. So be as generous as you can. Please consider becoming a monthly supporter. Encourage people that you mentor, people that you are connected with, and supporting World Services. So we would really appreciate that. And if you want to give a donation for tonight's talk, the link is there in the chat. Please consider giving a donation to World Services. I don't get paid for this. I'm doing it for service, but part of my service is to support the organization. So please be supportive of the organization. I think that's it. That's what I got. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. May any goodness that comes from our practice and discussion of this teaching be offered to all of the suffering addicts in this world. And may we all find recovery. May we all find the willingness to heal. And together, may we create a positive change on this planet.